She was standing there, arms crossed, blocking my car with her golf cart like she owned the place. "You're not allowed to park here," she said, jabbing a fake clipboard in my face. I looked at the spot. It was my own garage driveway, clearly marked, titled under my name. But Karen didn't care about facts. "This area's under HOA regulation now," she continued. "And we're assigning spots to prevent chaos. Yours has been reassigned." She actually taped a printed HOA notice to my garage, there were misspelled words and all, and told me I had 24 hours to vacate. I stayed calm, not because I wanted to, but because I had plans. She had no clue who she was messing with. Later that night, I reviewed all the security footage. I caught her measuring the driveway with a tape. Then at 2 a.m., she spray-painted a new lot number over mine and marked it with cones. Her plan? Make it look official, claim it, steal it. The next morning, I calmly removed the cones. I installed something instead. By noon, a brand new retractable barrier arm was in place, connected to my private license plate scanner. Only my car and my wife's would trigger it. Karen came running the moment she saw it. "You can't do this." "That's HOA violation." I didn't flinch. "This is private property, Karen. You have no legal jurisdiction here." She lost it. "You think this is over?" "I'm calling the cops." I smiled. "You should. They're gonna love what I show them." Viral line. She forged HOA documents to steal my garage, so I installed a $7,000 robot arm that only lets me in. Karen stood in the middle of the driveway, phone shaking in her hand as she dialed. "Yes, 911? There's a man installing illegal machinery on community property. He's threatening me with surveillance." I leaned against the fence, arms folded. I didn't need to say much because every word she spoke was being recorded. I had 4 cameras rolling, 2 on the garage, 1 on the porch, and 1 in the oak tree that Karen didn't know about. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Karen ran to them like she was the victim in a true crime documentary. "He blocked me from entering the HOA-assigned space," she cried. "He's aggressive, possibly armed, and installed a scanner to intimidate residents." The officer walked over to me, calm, professional. "Sir, do you live here?" I handed him my ID, deed copy, and property boundary map without a word. He glanced at it, then looked back at Karen. "Ma'am, this is his property. That barrier arm isn't even touching HOA land." Karen's face turned red like a soda can ready to explode. "This can't be right," she screamed. "I run this community." The cop raised an eyebrow. "According to our records, the HOA president is Linda Harper. You're not even on the board." And then came the twist. Karen snapped. "That's because I created the new board last week." "We're restructuring." "It's a shadow HOA. We don't need your permission." The officer turned to me, confused. "Sir, have you heard of any official notice about a shadow HOA?" I nearly laughed. "No, officer. But I do have her trying to paint over my garage numbers at 2 in the morning. Want to see it?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the footage. Karen, hoodie on, spray paint in hand, trespassing like it was a mission from a cartoon villain. The officer's expression hardened. "That's vandalism. And trespassing. I'll need you to step back, ma'am." Karen looked like the floor had just vanished under her. Viral line of the section. She invented a fake shadow HOA, so I showed the cops her midnight spray paint mission. Karen backed away, but her eyes didn't. They burned through me like she was calculating her next move. The officer asked her to wait by her golf cart while he made a few calls. "Probably verifying property records." She obeyed, but not without muttering, "This isn't over. He thinks he's clever. Just wait." I went back inside. My wife, 6 months pregnant, was standing by the window, holding her belly, watching everything. "Is she really that obsessed over our driveway?" she whispered. "She's not obsessed with the driveway," I said. "She's obsessed with control." I wasn't about to let that slide. So I made a call of my own, to my old Army buddy, Ray. Ray didn't just serve with me overseas, he was now a high-level HOA legal consultant in D.C. When I told him what Karen pulled, he didn't even hesitate. "Send me the footage. I'll draft a cease and desist by tonight. And don't worry, I've worked with state-level housing boards. She wants a war, let's make it legal." By the next morning, Karen had doubled down. She printed dozens of fake flyers titled, "Attention Dangerous. Resident at 306 Briar Lane, HOA. Will be removing him shortly." She taped them on mailboxes, on trees, on the back of my wife's car while we were asleep. I caught it all on camera again. My wife cried when she saw the flyer. That was my breaking point. I drove straight to the county clerk's office and requested a full land boundary certification and HOA, charter registration check. 10 pages later, it was confirmed. Karen wasn't just lying. She never had any legal HOA status at all. She was removed from the board 6 years ago after misusing community funds. I stood on my porch that evening, holding the new printed documentation in one hand and a remote in the other. Karen was parked near my driveway watching me. I pressed the button. The barrier arm lifted smoothly, silently, and let my car roll in. As soon as it dropped back down, her golf cart lurched forward like she was going to storm the gate. She didn't get far. Red and blue lights flashed behind her. Same officer. Back up this time. "Ma'am," he said, stepping out. "You're being served. Harassment, property defacement, and impersonating HOA authority." Karen's mouth dropped. "No, this is a setup. He's manipulating everything." I stepped forward, calm as ever. "No, Karen, you manipulated yourself into handcuffs." Viral line. She called me a dangerous resident, so I called the state board and uncovered her 6-year-old fraud. Karen screamed as they cuffed her. "You're making a mistake. I own this neighborhood. I own it." Her voice cracked somewhere between rage and panic. But the officers weren't moved. They read her rights like they'd done this 100 times before, and honestly, they probably had. Neighbors started coming out now. People who had stayed quiet for years. Mrs. Jennings, from across the street, whispered, "Finally," like she'd been waiting for this day forever. Even the retired Marine 2 houses down gave me a slow nod. "Told you someone had to shut her down," he said under his breath. Karen, in her last act of desperation, turned toward the crowd. "You're all going to regret this. I'll sue every single one of you. I have connections." This man. "He's dangerous." I didn't say anything yet. I just watched, calm, waiting. And then I walked forward. I pulled out an envelope, thick, stamped. "Officer," I said, "this is for her lawyer. It's a notice of civil damages. Filed this morning. Defamation, vandalism, and attempted fraud. I also submitted her flyers as evidence. The ones she taped to a pregnant woman's car at 3 a.m. Karen's jaw trembled. She hadn't realized how far I'd gone already. "But wait," she said, blinking fast. You're just some guy." That's when I finally said it. "No, Karen, I'm a retired federal judge. Eastern District. My name is on a dozen legal precedents in this state. I've sent real criminals to prison, and now I'm starting with you." Silence. Even the officers paused for a second. Then, like fate had a sense of humor, the officer closest to her said, "Oh my God, I remember you. I took notes in one of your lectures at Quantico." Karen looked like she saw a ghost. No, this is illegal." "You tricked me." "I didn't trick you," I said, stepping closer. "I recorded you. Every word. Every lie. Every illegal notice. You thought I was just another man in your way. Turns out I'm the law you pretended to be." Viral line. She thought I was just another neighbor, until I told her I'm a retired federal judge and everything she did was already documented. The cruiser door slammed shut behind Karen, but her scream still echoed in the street. "This is entrapment. I know people at the mayor's office. I'll be out in an hour." But deep down she knew. The moment that badge clicked onto her wrist, the power she clung to vanished. The officers drove off, leaving behind flashing lights, stunned neighbors, and a street quieter than it had been in years. I stood there for a moment, not saying anything. My wife stepped beside me, placing her hand on my arm. "She's really gone," she whispered. "After all these years?" I nodded. "And it's not over yet." "Well, we just wanted you to know. Your footage and case are going viral. People are calling this the fake HOA Queen scandal." I smiled slightly. "Let's just say, she picked the wrong garage to steal." Viral line. Karen created a fake HOA bank account and stole from 40 families. Now the entire neighborhood is turning on her. By the next morning, our street looked completely different. The same neighbors who once avoided eye contact were now gathering in groups, comparing stories, showing fake notices Karen had shoved under their doors. One man held up a crumpled HOA fine for aggressive porch colors. Another had an email from a fake legal parking committee, also signed by Karen. It was no longer just about me. It was everyone. And we were all done staying quiet. A neighborhood meeting was held that evening on Mr. Howard's lawn. I showed up late on purpose. I wanted to let them speak first. By the time I got there, a petition was already being passed around. It had over 50 signatures calling for criminal charges, full reimbursement, and a public apology. When I was asked to speak, I kept it simple. I didn't move here to fight, I said. I moved here to build a life with my wife, who, by the way, is carrying our first child. But when someone threatens that peace, when they weaponize fake authority, lie to good people and treat the law like a toy, then you don't just push back. You shut it down completely. The crowd clapped loud. The kind of clap that says we've had enough. I glanced across the street. Karen's house was dark, empty. Oh, for sale by owner sign was jammed. Crooked in her lawn. Too little, too late. Later that night, Ray texted me one final update. Federal wire fraud and impersonation charges pending. IRS audit started. 3 civil lawsuits already filed. My wife walked out to the porch and leaned on my shoulder. You okay? She asked. I nodded. You? She smiled. I feel safe again. I looked down at her belly and whispered, no one messes with our family. Not in this house. Not on this land. And just then, almost on cue, the barrier arm at the driveway beeped softly and lifted as our car returned home. The system worked. The truth won. And Karen was gone. Viral line. We didn't just beat Karen, we exposed her, united the neighborhood, and made sure no one like her ever rises again. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Not from Karen, from her lawyer. It was a settlement offer, 3 pages long, full of legal spin, half apologies, and desperate bargaining. She offered to refund some residents. She wanted the civil suits dropped. And she begged for one thing in bold underlined text. No media involvement. I laughed. Too late. Her story had already aired on 3 local channels. A national news outlet picked it up under the headline, Fake HOA President Faces Federal Charges After Judge Exposes. $80,000 Scam. There was even a meme now. Karen's mugshot with the caption, Not your property, not your power. And the best part? Someone made a parody listing of her house on Zillow. Haunted by entitlement, previous owner believed she was above the law. I didn't reply to her lawyer, Ray did. Your client had no problem humiliating others, his letter said. Now she can live with the consequences. Or face them in court. Meanwhile, the real HOA board, yes, the actual one, contacted me privately. Turns out Karen had been a thorn in their side too. Fake notices, hacked email threads, even impersonating their treasurer. They offered me a seat on the board. I said no. I didn't do this for control, I told them. I did it because silence almost let her win. Instead, I proposed something better. A neighborhood fund, transparent, optional, built to support elderly residents, single parents and veterans living in the community. Within 72 hours, we raised over $12,000. That money built a new playground, repaired the community garden fence, and gave back what Karen tried to steal. The same neighbors who once shut their doors now waved every time I passed by. My wife? She started a weekly porch brunch for local moms. Even the old Marine? He showed up once with a pecan pie and said, You brought peace to this block. That matters more than law. Viral line. Karen offered a private apology, so we built a public legacy she could never erase. It was a calm Sunday morning when it all finally felt real. The street was quiet. Kids were riding their bikes again without parents watching nervously from windows. The old garden fence was freshly painted. Wind chimes on porches rang soft like the whole neighborhood was finally breathing. My wife stood barefoot on the porch, holding her coffee with one hand and gently rubbing her belly with the other. You feel that? She asked. I smiled. Peace? She nodded. First time in years. And just then, a black SUV pulled into our driveway. The license plate scanner beeped, and the barrier arm lifted without a hitch. My brother stepped out visiting from out of town. He was also former law enforcement. We hugged. He looked around and said, Man, you've really changed this place. No, I said. We did. Because it wasn't about a barrier arm, or a driveway, or even the fraud. It was about something deeper. People had let fear keep them quiet. They accepted Karen's fake power because it was easier than challenging it. But once one person stood up, others followed. That's how change happens. Not with shouting, but with truth. With proof. With purpose. The news eventually moved on. Karen's trial was scheduled, her accounts frozen, her name permanently stained with her own lies. No more fake HOA memos. No more threats taped to garage doors. Just silence. The kind that felt earned. That evening, my wife and I sat out front. The sun was setting over the trees. "I can't believe it's over," she whispered. I looked at her, then at her growing belly. "It's not over," I said. "It's just beginning. Our child's going to grow up in a neighborhood that stood up, that remembered who it belongs to, us." She smiled. "And if another Karen shows up?" I kissed her hand gently. "Then we remind her this land doesn't bow to fake power. Not here. Because some people build fences, and others build legacies." Final viral. She tried to own the neighborhood with lies, so we reclaimed it with truth, and made it safer for every child who will grow up here. The end. Subscribe my YouTube channel for more stories.